Hi, Jisoo. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining in, Jisoo. Actually, I'm going to share a little bit. Actually, I'll share in just a little bit. Thank you, everyone who joined in. I'm going to speak a little. If you'd like to stay in the silence, please mute me. Welcome, one and all. So, one of the very, very interesting things that Bruno Groening said is don't be incredulous. The English word's not used very often. Don't be incredulable. I'm not saying it correctly. Sorry. Incredulous. There it is. And don't be gullible. Convince yourself of the truth. So, incredulous is a very interesting word. A word that's used so often and easy in English. Oh, incredulous isn't the right word. I'm sorry. I'll have to look up the correct word. But he did. He also said, "Don't be gullible." What does it mean to be gullible? Credulous is the word. He wants us to be incredulous. He doesn't want us to be credulous. Now let's get a little more clear. So someone who is gullible is easily persuaded to believe something. Okay. Credulous is having or showing too great a readiness to believe things. So, isn't that interesting? Bruno doesn't want us to be easily persuaded to believe something, and he doesn't want us to have or show too great a readiness to believe things. And yet, Bruno Groening constantly called us to trust and believe. But on the other hand, he doesn't want us to be too willing to believe something. So what on earth? It sounds like Bruno Groening is contradicting himself. And so we need to get to the real essence of what it means to believe. So, and he also said to convince yourself of the truth. So, for example, if I were to say at 10 o'clock, let's say I have an appointment with someone in an hour from now. And so I said, well, in 1 hour from now, I'm going to be meeting Janet. Let's just say Janet. I'm going to be meeting Janet for tea. So, is that a belief? Yes, it's a belief. I have something on my calendar. That's a fact. I have an appointment. That's a fact. I'm utterly convinced of that. I have a memory of it. So that's a fact. I don't need to convince myself of it. It's just something I know. Hey, I spoke with Janet. We made this appointment. We have this appointment. However, that the appointment is actually going to happen, that's just a belief. An hour from now, who knows what's going to happen? But we as human beings, we have this very bad habit, which Bruno Groening was very critical of, that we accept our thoughts as true without investigating them. If we really investigated the thought, oh, in 1 hour, I'm going to see Janet, we'd very we would very quickly recognize, I don't know what's going to happen. I have the appointment. Maybe Janet will show up, maybe she won't. Maybe I'll show up, maybe I won't. I'm very committed to keeping my appointments, but who knows what's going to happen an hour from now. Now, this may seem like a very silly example, but look at that. In thinking to myself or in taking in the thought, I'm going to see Janet in an hour, I'm actually being dishonest. I've actually taken something to be true, which isn't true. What's true is I have a plan to see Janet in an hour. It'll happen or it won't. So, when Bruno Groening says glauben, which is often translated as believe, what does he mean? Because by telling us not to be credulous, not to be gullible, he's telling us not to easily believe things. My understanding of what Bruno Groening meant by believe is better said with the word trust. To have trust in a higher power and not to mentally believe anything until you've experienced it for yourself. Bruno Groening said, if you observe your body will convince yourself of the truth. So I've experienced this myself. Because I've experienced healings in my body, I don't have to mentally believe nothing is incurable, nothing is impossible. I know it. In a similar way, in my example, I don't have to believe, oh, I have an appointment with Janet. I know it. I have a clear memory of the conversation. I have a clear memory of putting it in my calendar. It's not something that I have to go up to the mind. It's much more visceral. Bruno Groening also said it's not appropriate, or it's not, I'm paraphrasing, it's not correct for someone to teach about other worlds and or the afterlife unless the person has personally experienced it. And so here, I believe, is where it becomes very clear the difference between mental belief and heart or gut belief. I hope that clarifies. So let's sit for a minute or two, and I may have a little more to say on this topic. So what comes to me is that Bruno didn't want to start another belief system, another religion. He wanted people to know the truth in their own experience. It's very different. One of the frustrating things about having debates about religion is no one really knows. People say, in every religion, people say, well, to enter heaven, you have to do this, this, and this. Or they'll say, well, heaven is like this, this, and this. But they haven't been there. Basically, what they've done is they've listened to someone else and said, oh, that's true. Or they've read a book and said, oh, that's true. And now when they say, oh, heaven is like this, or you have to do this, this, and this to get into heaven, in my view, they're actually lying. The truth is, if they were more honest, They would have said, oh, I believe, or this book says, and I trust this book, or this teacher says, this person, teacher, pastor says, and I trust that. So this may seem like a subtle topic, and it is a little subtle, but it's so important because it's so important if you're interested in walking the path that Bruno Groening taught. Because Bruno Groening did not come to teach a religion. He didn't, let me clarify, he didn't come to give us a belief system. He came, in my view, my belief is that Bruno Groening came to teach us how to know the truth, how to go beyond belief systems to a direct connection to God and a direct knowing of the truth in our own experience. It's always fascinated me how little Bruno Groening talked about what happens after this life. Metaphysical topics. Bruno Groening only, every now and then he would talk about our next life. Very rarely, 1% of 1% of 1%. He did talk about metaphysical topics only if it was practical. Like he would talk about good and evil all the time and how to recognize good and evil and to seek the good. But he didn't do so we could start a belief system and be like, oh, there is good and evil and da 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 da. He taught it so that we could live well. His teaching is immensely practical. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining in and taking time to listen to this and hopefully reflect on it and to begin to discern the difference. One of my favorite examples is, like I say, a friend. Like I have a new friend, a neighbor, Dave. So if 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 I'm feeling down, I don't believe with my head that Dave will have kind words or be good company. I believe it with my gut and my heart. I don't even believe it. I just trust it and know it. I've had enough experiences with my friend Dave to know that he's kind-hearted and that he's very encouraging. I don't have to think about it. And I believe that's the kind of belief Bruno Groening wants us to have. It's easy to believe something, especially in the 21st century. You just hop on the internet and there's 10 billion, not 10 billion, but there's literally a billion people out there. And here I am, one of them, who are offering you something to believe mentally. All over the internet. The internet is pretty much nothing but people sharing their beliefs as if it's a fact, and oftentimes trying to get you to believe what they believe. So if I'm doing my job well, and if I'm understanding Bruno Groening well, I see it as my job to teach people a way of life and ultimately to go beyond belief, beyond mental belief, and also to learn how to discern what's true and what's not true. Because Bruno Groening said all of our problems stem from listening to other people, meaning taking on what other people said as true without checking it out for ourselves. Thank you so much for joining in. I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful day and good reflection on what the heck Bruno Groening meant by believe, given that he simultaneously didn't want us to be credulous or gullible, to easily believe things. Take care. Big love.